If Oregon's making a move in the transfer portal, I know where it would be.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Plenty coming on today's show. The latest on a 5-star that you cannot forget about, though it might be easy to, and I saw some highlights and had some beautiful, wonderful flashbacks for a basketball prospect. All on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, the transfer portal officially opens today, Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. I don't expect Oregon to be tremendously busy. If they do go add someone, though, the one spot where I describe it as not necessarily a need, but maybe like a half need, is linebacker. I say half need because the players in that room go like this: Bryce Betcher and Devin Jackson. Those are going to be your stars. And then it's Braden Platt, Dylan Williams, Kamar Mathuti, Jerry Mixon, and Gavin Nix. None of those guys after the top two have any legitimate playing experience. Now, Williams, Mathuti, and Platt all came in the same cycle in 2024. They are redshirt freshmen. Love the upside and potential there. If you think back to Devin Jackson, though, who is about to be a starting linebacker, he's not in that role until his fourth season. He was the third linebacker last year, which was his third season of college football. If these guys are ahead of that particular schedule, and they're all kind of similarly rated coming out of high school, Jackson was, I think, one of the top players, top 2 or 3 out of the state of Nebraska. He had great speed. Like, he didn't see a significant role on the defense. He saw a small one in 23. Really, he saw one this past year. The question's going to be who pops into that role. Now, if a redshirt freshman or Jerry Mixon, a third-year Duck, are ready to do that, then great. Maybe Oregon does need a transfer in the spot. But they just lost Jeffrey Bassa and Justin Jacobs to eligibility. Those guys were both seniors. So you lost your leader of the defense in Jeffrey Bassa. Bryce Betcher's probably going to assume that role, I would think. And then last year, Betcher was the second most snap linebacker behind Bassa. That will probably change. Betcher will be number 1, I would guess, and Devin Jackson will be number 2. But then the question becomes, who steps up to fill that next role? I don't think that there is another position where the potential, just potential, for a drop-off from the starters to the next unit is as severe as linebacker. And this is kind of the way I think about it, is I want those guys to get their chance to play because I think their potential, they were all 4-star linebacker recruits in 2024. I think that their potential is really good. What I don't want is for Oregon to be relying on them before they're really ready to. And so the reason a veteran that isn't necessarily, an all-conference caliber guy, but just someone even like a Connor Soley maybe, who was mostly a special teams player for Oregon the last couple of years, just someone who has experience playing real-world snaps at the inside linebacker spot, not talking about the outside linebacker position at all, that is really more of a defensive lineman. Like, I'm just talking second-level guys. I think that could make sense. If you are saying, Spencer, you should just be letting the young guys play, like throw them into the fire and they got to learn eventually. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. The good news, if you are in that particular camp, is the market at the moment that I'm recording this show, not super hot for linebackers. 2 of the top 10 rated linebackers in the 24/7 transfer portal rankings are guys that I actually covered last year at Southern Utah. One of them was a player at Southern Utah, and he was really good. Would he be better than anybody Oregon has in that room right now? I don't believe so. I don't think so. He was going to Kent State and then is now going to seek a different opportunity to play football. But I just looked at the linebacker rankings in the market, and I was like, hey, there's only one 4-star transfer even in the portal right now, and it's Mekhi Gabayer or Bayer. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. He's a transfer from Missouri that entered the portal 5 days ago. I haven't heard or seen anything to indicate that Oregon's going after him there, or that Oregon even wants to make a move. But with the transfer portal opening today, that's the most glaring potential need for me, because this position group I think is incredibly interesting. I like the long-term outlook. In the short term, though, you are one injury away from relying on someone who hasn't had the opportunity to work himself into the fold, right? Devin Jackson is someone you're going to rely on this year. Well, he didn't play his first year. He redshirted. He kind of played. He was like the fourth linebacker maybe in 2023. And again, like these guys, he was a pretty highly rated 4-star recruit coming out of the state of Nebraska with a lot of speed and great physical intangibles. And then in 2024, he was the third linebacker, and you felt his presence, right? Whichever one of these guys steps up in the linebacker room for Oregon, you're going to notice him, hopefully, making impact plays and not being a liability on the field this fall. That is a guarantee across the board. Oregon's base personnel is 4-2-5. They have regularly played 3 or really 4 linebackers throughout the course of Dan Lanning's tenure. And last year, it was mostly 3. We didn't see Justin Jacobs a ton on the field. We did see him. He was out there a non-zero number of snaps, but not a huge amount. So that's why a transfer in this room would make sense. But I fully expect Bryce Betcher and Devin Jackson to start. 100. I would be frankly shocked in a good way if one of these guys, I'll pick one at random, Kamar Methudi, is able to win a starting linebacker job. That speaks volumes about what the coaching staff is doing with these guys' progression, because this is just not a spot. Even think about Jeffrey Bassa. First year he moved down to linebacker from safety, he was not good. He was not good. Next year, all conference linebacker in the Pac-12. Last year, good player. I think he was a little iffy at the start coming off of that injury that he suffered early in the season. But again, high impact player, guy whose production you have to find a way to replace. I think Betcher and Jackson can certainly do that. But I think that the trio of Methudi, Williams, and Platt from that 2024 recruiting cycle, I think that's a trio of guys going into the spring game next week I'm keeping a really close eye on, because I watched them last year because I was interested. Like, man, these are pretty solid recruits. What's it going to mean for the future? In the spring game, I wasn't blown away. It looked like, they're going to need another year. And lo and behold, we didn't see them at all really in a meaningful capacity for the 2024 season. But now that has to change. Now they've been in the weight room for a year, adapted to the college game, learned the playbook, all that sort of stuff. I'd keep your eye on Jerry Mixon, though, because he is the most experienced guy behind the top 2. He was a 2023 recruit, wasn't quite as highly rated, but in the few glimpses we've seen of him, I think Jerry Mixon has looked pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's Oregon's number 3 linebacker here. And the only true freshman really to monitor is the only true freshman Oregon brought in the 2025 class as a true second level linebacker. We'll see what Nasir Wyatt does, but Gavin Nix is someone who they flipped from Miami. Like his tape a lot. Curious to see what he does, but I felt that way about the now redshirt freshman a year ago, where I felt, hey, these guys are pretty solid recruits. I like what they bring to the table on film. I always liked Methudi the most of the 3, but I think they all have the potential to be good players. Tosh Lupoi has spoken highly of them, Oregon's defensive coordinator, of course. So I watched them last year and thought, they don't look ready. Gavin Nix might not look ready come the spring game next week. So overall, I think the linebacker room is sitting at a B- for me going into the spring game. Coming out of it, I might feel differently. And I'll evaluate each position group going into the spring game and coming out of it as well. But I'd say B- now just because I don't know where those guys are at in their development. I certainly like what you have at the top, but this is not a position group where you could afford to have an injury and expect your defense to perform at the same level. Whereas in the secondary, a guy could get hurt, and as long as it's not Dylan Thieneman, I mean, it could be the same level of production, maybe better. You never know. I don't know how that's all going down. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all that good stuff. Don't forget about this guy in 2026. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So whether you want to pick your favorite team or whether you want to dive into player props, it's all easy to navigate over there. Great interface for someone who's not as technologically savvy as you might think, like myself. It's really easy to navigate all over there. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. And if you want to bet on Oregon, you can do that too. You can bet on Oregon football right now. They've got a win total, tied for the highest in the country at 10.5. They have got national title odds, Big Ten title odds, Heisman odds for Dante Moore. It's all over there. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. FanDuel.com. Don't forget about this guy. That guy is Ryder Lyons. So, the 2026 five-star quarterback who is also heavily considering BYU and USC, amongst others. Michigan, Ole Miss maybe getting in the fold there. But Oregon is still going after him. And I have expressed my admiration for Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback in the class, according to 24/7. If Jared Curtis on May 5th commits to Georgia and Oregon is then able to get Ryder Lyons, this is not a bad situation whatsoever for Oregon football. So Lyons was in Eugene recently, or might still be in Eugene, on a visit to the Ducks, and they're still very much in the fold, because I would think you don't host him for a visit right now unless you are truly unsure of what Jared Curtis is going to do in a couple weeks' time. So we'll see. And if you missed yesterday's show, Jackson Cantwell, number one offensive tackle, is visiting for the spring game next weekend. And then he's committing 4 days later. You make of that whatever you like. Maybe that is going to be the biggest tease that Oregon fans have had on the recruiting trail this 2026 cycle. I do not know. What I do know is that if Oregon winds up with Ryder Lyons instead of Jared Curtis, I'm not going to use the word disappointed. I am going to be excited that Oregon got Ryder Lyons. He, too, is incredibly awesome in the 2026 cycle. So just a name to keep your eye on right there. But let's hop into the mailbag. YouTube comments, Twitter, all ways to get in the mailbag, along with becoming a Locked On Ducks Insider. Link in the description below. You can become an insider for a free 14-day trial. Then it's just $5 a month. You get priority mailbag access, bunch of other perks as well. This one came in from an insider over there. How does the week schedule of Oregon this year affect rankings? How does Oregon's schedule compare to the SEC cupcake argument of past years? Answer: it doesn't on the second part. So the SEC cupcake comes late in the season. Remember last year when Oregon was playing Wisconsin? Let me see what date that was on, because that was Friday, November 16th. So on Friday, November 16th, Alabama was playing Mercer. Okay, it's just one example. The ACC does it as well. Clemson, I think, was playing the Citadel that week. Okay, they take FCS games and plug them late into the conference schedule so that they get a break. And is the SEC punished for that? No, they haven't been in years past. I hope it goes away forever and we get them to a 9-game conference slate like the rest of the industrialized college football world. Same goes for the ACC. It's not ridiculous that they have FCS teams on their schedule whatsoever. I fully support that. It should only be allowed in the first month of the season. After that, no dice on playing an FCS opponent. Absolutely not. So I think that's the ridiculous element of it. But Oregon's schedule doesn't have one of those in there because they play in the Big Ten. So Oregon last year was playing their 8th consecutive conference game against Wisconsin on the road at night in November. Trap game central. They found a way to win. Bama was playing Mercer. That's the cupcake, right? That's not what people, that is what people refer to with the SEC cupcake. Not, oh, you're playing an easy schedule. No, there are a bunch of great teams on SEC schedule because they're playing in the SEC. But as we saw last year, the SEC is not what it once was. Still very good. Not what it once was. So back to your first question, though, Oregon's schedule being relatively weak. It is easy to say that now. It could look tougher by the time the 2025 season comes to a close. That depends mostly on two teams, USC and Washington. You could throw Indiana in there if you'd like. I think we all know what Indiana is going to be, and Wisconsin is, Wisconsin's going to be about the same sort of team pretty much. But Indiana to a lesser extent, but really USC and Washington, because on paper, you look at Indiana and say, oh, that's, a solid team that you're playing at home. USC on paper based on last year is a team you look at and go, that's not a great team that you're playing at home. And Washington, that's not a great team you're playing on the road. I would not be shocked if either Washington or USC, or maybe both, are 8+ win teams next year. Would not be shocked. I could see both, still being in the 6 to 7 range for various reasons. Either one is capable of being an 8, maybe 9. I don't think either one has a double-digit win season loading up, but being in that 7 to 9 win range, entirely possible. So that could change the strength of schedule for the Ducks overall. But where Oregon benefits from, looking at their non-conference schedule, which isn't very strong, right? They have Oklahoma State at home, who's down right now, usually a great program in the Big 12. They are down. They just had their worst season ever under Mike Gundy. And then they play Oregon State, who will be better than last year. But that's not going to do a ton. I mean, that's an okay potential win for the Ducks, which they also have at home. The schedule is not brutal. No Ohio State, no Michigan. They do go at Penn State. I think being in the Big Ten and also coming off a season in which they just won the Big Ten, and they'll be a lock as a preseason top 10 team. Whether they finish the year in that spot, time will of course tell. But they will be a preseason top 10 team, and so they'll benefit, I think, tremendously. And that'll kind of help offset a relatively weak schedule where they might not have a ton of high quality or ranked wins. 10-2 is not guaranteed to get you in. In the Big Ten, though, probably. Again, even with a relatively weak schedule, if they play in the conference championship game at 10-2, based on where Clemson was at last year, they'd have to win, but that was in the ACC. We haven't seen that yet in the Big Ten. But if they go 10-2, miss the Big Ten championship game, and their losses are to say, they also have to go to Iowa, who again could be okay, but I don't know if they're going to be great necessarily. I think if you have wins against a good Indiana team at Iowa and you beat Washington, let's say, just for hypothetical sake, you win at an 8-win Washington team, USC's an 8-ish win team, Indiana's an 8-ish win team, and you lose at Penn State and you lose at Iowa, and that's how you go 10-2, that's probably just enough. It's definitely not a guarantee. 11 or more wins, lock. 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 10-2 should get you there. But this is where being in the Big Ten, to answer your question, it is really, really advantageous, because last year we saw 10-2 Miami and 10-2 BYU get next to no consideration, while 9-3 SEC teams were lobbying to get in. 3 of them, South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss, were all saying, we should be in the play, we should be this. And Brett Bielema had Illinois at 9-3 with a schedule kind of comparable to Ole Miss, and he tweeted out, "Hey, maybe we should get a look too if you're getting a look, or we should just let the committee kind of do whatever, go through their process. We should just leave them and let them do it, and just understand that they're going to make a decision that they think is best." So, yeah, in that sense, I don't think the Big Ten gets the same cachet as the SEC. As evidenced by Illinois, I also think that Oregon's brand, and it absolutely matters, is incredibly strong, and that helps them. It absolutely does. No question about it. I don't think the Big Ten has the same weight once you get past the top as the SEC. It's definitely better than the Big 12 or the ACC, though. Definitely. 100%. I have no qualms about that. JT, I was going to get to your question, but that answer took me a little bit longer than I was planning. So, JT, I'll make sure I get to your question on tomorrow's show. So, a shout out that is well deserved, and an Oregon basketball prospect that I don't know how else to see him other than a familiar friend. All right, I'm still trying to track down the best pronunciation of Paul Mbiya's name. Perhaps that is it. I would really like Oregon to get this guy. I don't know that he's ready to contribute this year. Top priority should still be Nate Bittle coming back to the Ducks. We are in day, I don't even know what, of awaiting his announcement with regards to entering the NBA draft or not. He will not transfer. He's either going to the draft or coming back to Oregon. I really hope it's the second one. And as I mentioned before, and kind of have to remind myself, the timeline for adding impact transfers in basketball is very different than football. TJ Bamba, Oregon's starting 2/3 last year, was brought in on May 2nd. So there's still a hefty amount of time and a lot of guys in the portal. And remember, you can go into the portal only during certain windows. Like the portal's open now for football players. You can come out of the portal anytime. You can only go in if it's in a specified window. If your coach has left, you have a 30-day window to go into the portal. Or if you are a grad transfer, you can go in anytime as well. So bringing this back to basketball, though, the comparison between Mbiya and N'Faly Dante are too numerous to count. So I tweeted out, or retweeted rather, his highlight reel that I got tagged in. And I'd seen a couple of clips of him, and he's an intriguing physical prospect. Here's how similar these two guys are. Mbiya is 6'10", 220 pounds. He's a center. By the way, shout out Oregon softball. They're number 6 in the country. Melissa Lombardi's got the squad playing really, really well. Saw that comment the other day. Hey, can softball get a shout out? Yeah, softball deserves a shout out. They are playing some serious, but they're playing better than baseball right now. Who's doing fine, but not as well. Softball looks legit. Absolutely legit. So just something to note. Anyway, Mbiya is 6'10", 220 pounds. And N'Faly Dante, when he came to Oregon, 6'11", 230 pounds. Now, if you go watch the highlight reel that I retweeted and I made this remark, I cannot in the strongest terms express to you how much I thought I was just watching N'Faly Dante highlights. Not just the size, okay? The physical traits, he's a little bit newer to basketball. You can see that with some of the ways that he makes post moves or the way that he just kind of moves on the court. But he is big, he is strong, and he knows that he is big and strong. And that was always kind of my favorite part about Dante, was he'd just get down low and, you know, Nate Bittle is going to hit a turnaround fadeaway or a soft baby hook. Sometimes Dante is just going to move you out of the way, okay? That's the biggest difference between Dante and Bittle, who of course been Oregon's 2 starting 5s in the last couple of seasons. Biggest difference, Bittle's not moving anybody out of the way. He's just skillfully going to score in other ways and has greater potential as a scorer than Dante does. Dante's a better rebounder and one-on-one defender, and they're both elite shot blockers. So Mbiya is someone who moves. He even made the same sorts of moves. Like there was one where he gets by a guy and he goes and throws down this reverse dunk. He's very athletic, by the way, just like Dante. He goes and throws down this reverse dunk, and I swear 50 different highlights of Dante doing the same thing during his career at Oregon, particularly in last year's NCAA tournament run to the round of 32 and very nearly the Sweet 16. I was just having the best of flashbacks to that. And I mean, the way he puts up hook shots, the way he moves guys out of the way, the athleticism to throw down dunks, the shot blocking, the way he can move his feet. This guy who is playing internationally at the moment for a team owned by Tony Parker is, you know, getting, I'd presume, some solid experience and coaching, I would hope, but still is definitely very raw. This is not someone who I think would come in and be Oregon's starting center. I think one day he could be Dante, but remember, Dante wasn't the full-fledged version of himself right away in his Oregon career either. So it took him a little while. I think it would take Mbiya a while as well, but to say that I am intrigued by what this guy can bring to the table, I could not have been more giddy watching his highlight reel and just go, it's Dante. This is new Dante. Size, athleticism, mannerisms, play style. It's all there. all the potential's there. And I bet if you asked Dana Altman and he told you honestly, he'd say the same thing. We'd see a lot of Dante. We'd get that old gristly voice. Well, we'd see a lot of Dante. See a lot of Dante in him. Like, fantastic. I'd be totally here for it. Question came in from DC about basketball. This could be a mailbag question, but I'm not sure if it's a full topic, but I'm asking anyways. Well, in your defense, it's not a full topic, but it's part of the topic. With UO basketball's transfer cycle starting off pretty slow with no big names, do you think Altman and Lanning ever use each other as recruiting tools when it comes to getting into certain areas across the country? Or do you think they just stay 100% focused on their sport and are just employed at the same school and that's it? Yeah, I'm not really certain how cross-promotional recruiting would really work. Getting to certain areas across the country. But both of these guys have demonstrated a high ability to recruit in the last several years. I don't think there's any coordination between the two. I think the one area, frankly, that popped in my head when I read your question, DC, was first of all, I agree with the second part of your question that they're just 100% focused on their sport and they're just employed at the same school and that's it. But the one thing that did pop into my mind is Kendra Harrison, who is a class of 2026 recruit, who is also a top 100 basketball recruit. He's a 5-star tight end. He has shut down his recruitment. He's coming to Oregon. All the reports have been that he's going to play both football and basketball, and Oregon hasn't had a guy do that very seriously in quite a while. It's a really difficult thing to do because football season runs into, hopefully, should be every year, December or January. Okay, well, January is when conference play begins. Non-conference play begins in November. I can't imagine, unless Harrison is just the ultimate, he's an incredibly athletic guy. Elgin Cook type on the basketball court, just kind of a 6'7" athletic basketball player. That's the position he plays. And who's not much of a shooter. I'm not sure how that could work. Like if Oregon basketball's got a game, non-conference schedules can be different. Let's say they even have a game on Wednesday at home against like a Kent State. Is Lanning okay with him playing and getting ready for that game, playing in that game, and then going back to football practice on Thursday, but practicing with basketball Monday, Tuesday in the lead up to Wednesday? I can't imagine that'd be the case. And so then what you'd be looking at is, let's say Oregon has the sort of season I think they will be capable of having in the 26 season when Harrison comes in. If they go to the national championship game and Harrison's on the roster and he's an impact player or any kind of role player on that team, would he then hop over to basketball? Because then, that ends on January 20th. Can he then go into March? Like, how quickly could he get ready to be on the basketball court? I don't know. I don't know how all that's going to work. That just popped in my head. But to your point, no, I don't think there's any, cross-promotional recruiting. I don't really know where that would work because the two worlds don't intersect a whole heck of a lot. But hey, I love the question anyway. Keep them coming. YouTube comments, Twitter, become an insider, all that good stuff. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and go Ducks.